You know that feeling, right? You look over at one of your favorite plants and something just seems off. Maybe it's a yellowing leaf, some weird spots, or it just looks kind of sad. You know something's wrong, but what is it? Well, today we're putting on our detective hats to crack the case of the ailing plant. It's a familiar sight for any plant owner, isn't it? One day your plant is just thriving, looking amazing, and the next it's sending out the silent cry for help. The real mystery isn't just what's wrong, it's figuring it out before it's too late. So, who's the bad guy here? Is it some sneaky pest? A silent disease? Look, to solve this mystery, we have to start thinking like detectives. And every good detective knows you always start by gathering clues and identifying your main suspects. Think about it this way. A sick plant is basically a living, breathing crime scene. Every discolored leaf, every strange spot, every wilted stem, that's a clue. It's a distress signal, and it's pointing us right toward the culprit. Our job is to learn how to read these signs. Now, the good news here is that in the world of plant problems, most issues are caused by one of just three main culprits. So getting to know these usual suspects is our absolute first step in this investigation. All right, let's get to it. Time to build our suspect profiles. The three main culprits we're dealing with are fungi, insects, and mites. Each one has a totally different way of attacking and leaves behind a unique set of clues. Let's meet them one by one. Kicking things off, we have suspect number one, fungi. These are tiny, microscopic organisms that can't make their own food. So what do? They act like parasites, feeding on your plant's tissue to survive. And that is definitely bad news for your plant. Now, fungi are total opportunists. They don't just show up out of nowhere. They absolutely thrive in specific conditions. Think damp, stuffy environments with bad air circulation. Like a greenhouse that's too humid, or that houseplant you might have accidentally overwatered. And this is what they leave behind. The classic calling card of a fungal infection is pretty much always rot and decay. Fungi literally break down the plant's tissue, and that leads to this kind of visible, often really mushy damage. Okay, on to our second suspect, insects. We're talking about pests like aphids, whiteflies, and those pesky mealybugs. Unlike fungi that cause rot, these guys tap right into the plant's circulatory system and start draining it of its life force, the sap. All right, here's a little pro tip for your detective work. Always check the underside of the leaves. It is the #1 hiding spot for a lot of these pests, like the whiteflies you see here. They're tiny, for sure, but they can gather in huge numbers and do a ton of damage really fast. And that brings us to our final suspect, and honestly, this one can be the sneakiest of them all, mite. You can call them by their scientific name, acarine, but really just think of them as tiny arachnids, so they're related to spiders. The famous red spider mite is a perfect example. Their real danger is their size. They are incredibly hard to see with the naked eye, but they reproduce so fast they can overwhelm a plant before you even know they're there. Now, this is a really key difference. While our friend the fungus loves dampness, mites thrive in the exact opposite conditions: hot, dry, arid places. They love to prey on plants that are already stressed out from not having enough water. So your plant's environment is a massive clue about who the likely suspect is. If you get in there and look really close, maybe with a magnifying glass, this is what you'd find. All those little tiny specks, those are the mites themselves. Without that magnification, they can just look like a little bit of dust on the leaves, which is exactly why these infestations can go unnoticed for so long. Okay, so we've met our suspects. Now for the real detective work, analyzing the evidence. Each of these culprits leaves a very specific set of clues behind, so let's learn how to tell them apart. Let's compare our first two suspects. Fungi will often leave these really distinct spots, almost like little bullseyes, or maybe a white powdery film. Insects, on the other hand, usually cause a more general yellowing. But here is the dead giveaway. Insects leave behind a sticky waste product. It's called honeydew. So check out the difference here between insect and mite damage. That sticky honeydew from insects, it can actually cause a whole second problem, a black fungus called sooty mold. But the telltale sign of mites, the thing that screams mites, is that very fine, silky webbing, plus a pattern of tiny little pinprick dots on the leaves. So if you remember just one thing from all this, make it this little detective's mantra. Fungi cause spots and rot, insects leave sticky secretions, and mites create tiny dots and fine webs. Honestly, this simple rule can solve the vast majority of your plant mysteries.
We've done it. We've gathered the clues, we've analyzed the evidence, and we've identified our suspect. Now it's time to close the case. Because knowing who the culprit is, well, that's the key to choosing the right solution and saving your plant.
And here it is, the ultimate plant detective's cheat sheet. This whole thing summarizes everything we've just covered, from the cause to the symptoms to the right remedy. And this is exactly why getting the diagnosis right is so important. I mean, using an insecticide on a fungal problem, it's just not going to work. You need the right tool for the job: fungicides for fungi, insecticides for insects, and miticides for mites.
So you've learned how to solve the case for a single houseplant. But what if we zoom out? What if we scale that up? Because it turns out the skills of a plant detective are crucial on a much, much larger scale.
Just consider this number for a second: 25%. According to the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, this is a truly staggering figure, and it has massive global implications.
It's the estimated amount of the world's food crops lost every single year to the very same culprits we've been investigating: pests and diseases. Think about that. A quarter of all our potential food just gone. This just goes to show that protecting plants isn't just a hobby. It is absolutely essential for our world. It helps secure our food supply, it makes sure we aren't wasting resources, and it supports millions of farmers all over the globe. Your backyard investigation is just a small-scale version of this exact same global challenge. So there you have it. You're now equipped with the basic tools of a plant detective. The next time you see a struggling plant, you'll know how to look for clues, identify your suspects, and close the case. So the only question left is, what's the first clue you're going to look for?